guess we're going to go live here. So when will I know that we are actually live? Oh, there we go. All right, I'm live. Hey, thank you all for waiting. Dom helped me walk me through that there, and I'm broadcasting from Standale. So thanks for your patience and waiting for me to get that fixed. So let's talk today about escalation clauses. And Eric, the other deal doctor, was going to join us today, but is a bit under the weather. So hopefully you can pass your good wishes on to him for a speedy recovery. This question came up a few weeks ago when there was an offer on a property that one of our listing agents got, and the agent who sent it over believed that the escalation clause could only be escalated one time, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But before I go and explain it all to you, in our clauses, in our section of clauses in dotloop, we have language for an escalation clause there. And this is the language. Buyer offers purchase price of some amount, but hereby agrees to escalate the offer to some amount more than any and all competing offers, including any competing offers with escalation clauses, minus any seller's concessions, from bona fide offers with pre-qualified buyers up to a maximum sales price of some amount. If the escalation clause is implemented, the seller shall provide a copy of any competing offers and the pre-qualification letters pertaining to those offers. Now, that's the language that we've created over the years to cover a multitude of things, one of which is, what's a bona fide offer? Is it a bona fide offer if the person making the offer has to still sell their house? If it's contingent upon the sale, is that a bona fide offer that will trigger an increase of a competing offer in an escalation clause situation? And the question is, we don't know for sure. We think that it's not. We think that a bona fide offer is one where the buyer is free to move forward and get the deal closed at some amount, whatever is decided upon. And we have a right to see those pre-qualification letters and understand what the conditions are for any offers which may trigger an escalation clause. I've shared this before, and I'll share it again, that an escalation clause, by its nature, is really the buyer and the buyer's agent trying to buy a house or help the buyer buy a house at the lowest price possible. In other words, it's kind of like the Price is Right game, and they have a washing machine on the up for bids, and somebody bids $500, and the next person that guy bids $501. And we've seen it happen. We all go, that's kind of a jerky thing to do. Well, that's what escalation clauses are. It's a buyer attempting to buy a house at the lowest possible price and still win. So the question that listing agents have and sellers have is, why didn't they write their best offer? Why didn't they come in big and write their best offer? Well, again, it goes back to the fact that they want to buy the house for the lowest possible price and still win. So how do we protect our sellers and our buyers in these escalation clause situations? In this particular case that I'm talking about, the first buyer, see if you can all see that, came in with an offer of $470, escalating to $500,000, okay? And they had an escalation clause of only $1,000. Okay, second buyer comes in, and they have an offer of $471 with an escalation up to $510 with an escalation clause amount of $2,000. So think through that math just for a moment, and what we came up with is the winner should be the second offer with a sales price of 502 because in our minds, it ratcheted up. The moment that each offer went up and up, it actually capped out with the first offer at 500 and then an additional $2,000 in an escalation clause over and above that. So that was our take on it. Well, guess what? The buyer agent comes back and says, well, no, you can't escalate, you ratchet it up like that. You can only escalate once. I didn't see that in the language of the escalation clause that you could only escalate it once. And so we put the question, and this agent claims that her broker agreed with her that you could only escalate it once. So we took the question to Gail Anderson. And here's what Gail's response was. The question was, does this language allow for an escalation to compete against another offer multiple times, or does it only allow for a one-time escalation price increase? And the answer Gail Anderson had was whether two escalation clauses can be used repeatedly to drive up, ratchet up the purchase price is an unresolved legal question. Buyer one does have an argument that the escalated price would be $472,000, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me because the agent put in a $510,000 cap. Why would you get to a $510,000 cap if you could only escalate once? That just doesn't make a lot of sense in my view. But Gail goes on to say, your argument is also valid, and I would not want to that it was 502, and I would not want to predict where a court would come out on this. Two judges could come out on opposite sides of this question. Given the uncertainty, and this is really the important part of this live stream today, and we'll repeat it. Given the uncertainty, if I were the seller, I would reject both and have the competing buyers resubmit their highest and best. That's the best option right there. Right to the heart of the matter. And what do we get? We were a little late started, but we got to the heart of it really quickly. Send them both back to write their highest and best. That's the best option. Or second best option is you could escalate at the counteroffer price. So, for example, in this case, where there's a escalation cap of $510,000, why couldn't you go back and say, we're going to ignore the escalation clause, and we're not going to say that the escalation clause has been triggered, but we're going to simply respond with a counteroffer of a price of 502. Let me know what your buyers want to do. So I think that's also an option. One of the other things we looked at is, well, could we include language which clarified that either it was going to be escalated, ratcheted up as I characterize it, or limited. And I wrote some language and it said, all parties agree that if, in addition to what we already have, all parties agree that if the escalation clauses implement A, choice one, competing offers will increase the purchase price up to the maximum amount of each offer. In other words, when their cap is over, when their cap has been reached, then the other offer, which has a higher cap, could have their escalation clause amount included, going from the 500 in this case to 502. Or option B, escalating amount may only be implemented once from the base offer price. Again, in the example we gave, the cap on the second offer should have been 472 if that was the buyer agent's intent and the buyer's intent in the submission of their offer. So I hope that helps. It's actually taken almost 20 minutes to go through this with the technical difficulties I experienced. So do we have any questions out there? I'm going to check the 5-Star Connect page here real quickly. See if we got anything. And I don't see anything. So, but as always, please feel free to add your comments, questions after this, and we will answer them as soon as they come in to the best of our ability. So, thank you for joining today. Again, I'm sorry that Eric couldn't join us today, but he's sounds like a frog today. So, I hope he gets better and back to work here quickly. So, thanks for joining. We'll see you next week.